Hey there, I'm Vincent from DROELOE, and I'm hanging out with Rob for Front Row Live.
What's up, guys? Rob here, Front Row Live Entertainment. I am finally hanging out with DROELOE, and I'm super excited. I first got introduced to your music by Holo. I was interviewing him at Exchange LA back in 2017, and he could not stop mentioning you the entire time. I was like, I really gotta check this guy out. Checked him out, and I just love how different your music is. You have so much sound design in your music, in your craft, and I'm curious, like, what is that process like for you? How do you really come into the studio session or the recording session and start to create music? Because you take me all over the place with your music that, like, I can't imagine your mind being just in one place when you're focused on recording.
I am in so many different places at once. Yeah, no, it's definitely not a thing that I start or do the same way every time. Actually, I try to start every song as an experiment, and then yeah, the sound design is part of that experiment.
Yeah.
So it's like a completely empty project, and I'll just either start messing with the drums first or with a melody first. Sometimes I have a humming melody already in my head, and I kind of work around that. So yeah, changing it up is definitely how that comes about, I guess.
How do you go as far as like trying to figure out what really works for you? Like that you know, everybody says they put their 10,000 hours before they make it, or before they like understand who they really are as an artist or whatnot. What was that like for you, trying to figure out who you were as an artist, what your sound was, where you belong in this industry?
Ooh, that's a
Good
question.
We're going
That's
deep.
a good question. I think for me, it was definitely the 10,000 hours, but it happened a little bit subconscious.
Yeah.
Because DROELOE started as a joke. Like the first few songs that we released were actual jokes. Just
Really?
like we just wanted to make some stupid, and stupid is in this case like a good word, like a positive, stupid bangers. And that's what we tried. And then at some point we started touring those, and then things became more serious.
Yeah.
And it felt like a very fluent path, or how do you say that?
Yeah, it was fluid, just natural progression.
Exactly. So I just kept making music, and that's I put in the 10,000 hours without realizing it, I think.
Yeah. Damn. And then it's crazy because fast forward to now, you just dropped what basically is your debut solo album.
True. Yeah.
As DROELOE, and it's, you know, the title is just perfect, The Art of Change. I feel like you've had so much change in your life the last couple of years, whether it be like as far as like the band, the project goes, as far as like management, label, whatnot. So even the world changing, and I feel like that's so much to consume all at once. How did that kind of impact you in a way that either inspired you to create this record, or maybe even challenged you to create this record?
It was almost a necessity because there were so many things changing. I needed ways to deal with that and to become more an active participant in that change, because I noticed things changing into a direction I wasn't really liking.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, I need to create tools to get a grip on my own role within that change. And it also felt as the perfect follow-up to A Matter of Perspective, because perspective is so much the source code for change to happen. Like, you have to, if you don't change your perspective, it's hard to change anything else.
Right.
Yeah. So again, like a necessity.
Yeah. So with that necessity, you went into the studio, started creating this album. Did you know you were creating this album? Was there a particular song that really came out of you first, and that's what kind of triggered the rest of the process?
Yes. The last song on the album, Counting 10, was the first song I created.
I love that you closed the album with it.
Yeah, but it felt like this point that I, at that moment of making it, had not reached yet. But I felt like it was so much the resolve of what this creative process was going to be.
Yeah.
That I felt like, okay, cool, I'm gonna listen to this when it's finished, when everything is finished, and that's the feeling that I want this song to. And every song has a specific goal
Mhm.
in that sense as well. Like Foolish Fish, for instance, is jumping into the unknown
Yeah.
and really engaging with the new. Um, yeah, stuff like that. It actually started with the concepts behind it, and then
Mhm.
I started thinking like, okay, how do I put this into music?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I love, like, as I mentioned earlier, I love the sound design that you kind of created with your music also, but like mainly on this record, just because these like voice memos, it's not me, it's not my voice, it's not my childhood, but like it still feels powerful at the same time.
Thank you.
What was that process like, coming into it and creating these or recording these?
It was it's a process that we've never done before.
Yeah.
So we approached a casting company,
Okay.
and I had written some texts that I would love, ask them to record.
Yeah.
And then I got back like 30 like voice recordings per piece of text, and the process of going through those and really listening. Okay, whose voice and what intonation is really getting this home.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool process, actually. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. And I love the collaborations that you also have, all the features that you have on this record. I feel like it's not just like, hey, I have these friends, let's bring them on. Like there's a reason, there's a point, and there's a meaning for each and every one of them. Talk to me a little bit about that meaning. And you also included Transviolet, which is an incredible band. So talk to me about the meaning of like having those features and like incorporating them into your songs.
It was mostly sound based. So for instance, Transviolet, her voice is very just powerful,
Yeah.
and just a great vocalist. And I needed that power because it, like the song Downside Up, it's about like trying to grab onto that control, but realizing that releasing or surrendering to it actually is regaining that control.
Yeah.
But a track, for instance, like Hermit with Amelia, her voice is very fragile, and I wanted a fragile voice to accompany that story.
Yeah.
So it's been like that, like looking for the perfect sound
Yeah.
in a person, and then like seeing if it clicks in writing together, and it
Yeah.
did. So yeah.
So it's not just vocally; it's you also got to write with them at the
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that impact your writing process now moving forward?
Ooh. Well, it was funny because it wasn't in the studio. It was over Zoom, actually, with both Amelia and Transviolet. And I love to write lyrics
Yeah.
as well, but just like to write with someone else, it's the riffing off of each other is just a lot of fun. So I'll definitely continue to do that in the future. Yeah.
What's your process when you write? Like, do you write journal style, poem to poetic style? Do you write specifically as if you were writing a song? And then when you're going through these, when you're writing these lyrics, do you start humming them or just kind of like listening to what you're going to create with them sonically in the process?
Little bit of both. Like it's I definitely start with the melody, the humming, and I have a concept, and then I start to like find words that can accompany that concept on that melody. And yeah, it's a puzzle. It's a big puzzle.
What has been a challenge for you on this album?
What hasn't been?
I mean, you've already had so much going on.
True. Yeah. It's I guess the vulnerability.
Yeah.
And to finish something that felt so close to me that well, finishing a track is it never really happens. I think a lot of musicians will kind of attest to that. It's always you just put it out, you let it go. Yeah. And it was hard to let it go, for sure. It was I didn't want to overproduce it, so at some point I really had to like tell myself, okay, you are not gonna touch this anymore.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge. Another challenge was I'm trying to think. Just like combining it with living, you know, just
Yeah. Trying to experience life while this is happening. And
yeah, I was obsessed. I was completely so my studio is in my living room,
Uh-huh.
and
It sounds like a problem.
well, it can be
There's no separation.
true. That's the big one, actually. So yeah, it turned out that I just woke up, went to my living room, and just went to bed at some point. So it was just day in day out. Yeah.
How much impact did you feel you had, like, now that you were doing this solo, you were doing this on your own, instead of bouncing ideas with a partner or anyone else in the room?
That's been a journey as well, actually. More on the visual side of things, because that was what Hyde and I sparred about the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the visual element was a challenge, but I am very grateful and happy that we found Funi Labs, who we clicked with instantly. And so as soon as we started to build these artworks, like, yeah, all those worries were gone.
Yeah.
In terms of the music, I didn't really ask a lot of friends or people like for feedback or input or stuff like that, because it was so personal. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So is this like your first time like really stepping out of that comfort level or vulnerable level or aspect in music?
To this extent, yes, for sure. Like, I definitely feel like I've gotten to vulnerable places in the past making music, but as a whole body of work, this like that element to it is most personal, actually. Like the tracks separately are just tracks, but this is kind of like a little bit of a kaleidoscope of what I feel inside.
You're going through, yeah. And with this tour, the Art of Change tour, which is wrapping up here in LA, I'm curious, like, what that dynamic was going from, like, now you're opening so much on this album to your fans, through your studio or living room, and then now you're in front of you have them in front of you while you're still giving us that level of vulnerability. So what was that experience like during these first couple shows or this tour in general? And do you feel like it was more comforting doing it live than doing it in your living room by yourself?
I wouldn't necessarily say more comforting, but completely different it was, for sure. It sometimes feels like I'm living a double life, because in the Netherlands, I don't really know that many people that are in the electronic music scene. And yeah, everyone knows me as Vincent, that trumpet player from that folk punk band, and not as DROELOE. So when I come here, it's this completely different world.
Yeah.
And being able to play in front of so many people it's surreal every time. And I love that. I hope that it will stay surreal, because this is something that I would rather not get used to.
Yeah.
Just because of how incredible it is.
Yeah. You were mentioning that on this tour was the first time that you got to bring out the Ableton.
Yeah.
So how did that really like impact your live set? What does that entail for those that are not familiar on what Ableton really is?
Right. So Ableton is the software that I create music in at the moment. And the way that I've implemented it on stage is kind of a similar way as I would create new songs. Just because I almost always start with something and then just start building on top of that vertically.
Yeah.
So I'll loop 8 parts or 8 bars and work on that till I have enough information to arrange a whole song with.
Yeah.
But what I did for these shows is technically build a 90-minute medley of old and new songs.
Wow.
And I improvise instruments on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I do not like really go into the song mixing on stage, but that element of just riffing, vibing with some instruments and just dancing around, that's kind of what I do in my living room.
Yeah.
So
nothing's changed. It's just now there's people watching.
Exactly. Yeah.
The windows are not closed anymore. It's like everyone is peeking in.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now the tour is wrapping here in LA.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
bouncing back with San Holo for a few more dates. Talk to me about that chemistry between the two of you. As I mentioned earlier, like he would not stop talking about you that first time back in 2017. And I know that you guys have done so much stuff collaboratively together in the past. And, you know, obviously you've toured together as well. So what is that chemistry between the two of you when you guys are either hanging out professionally in like as artists and then also outside of that?
So we used to a lot more, but we both are super busy these days. And also San is living over here now.
Yeah.
And I still live in the Netherlands, so it makes it harder to
Maybe next
just...
year you'll come in here.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think I'll be staying in the Netherlands for at least the foreseeable future. But yeah, no, it's like I have my career to thank for him. Like he brought us up. He took us on our first tour and showed us this world. So he definitely has a deep place in my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see him again. And I'm also excited because I'm the only Dutch person. So we're just going to be two Dutch boys on a bus, just talking Dutch.
That sounds like trouble.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's good that there's no one else
Yeah.
Dutch because, yeah, translating that would probably not be great.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that tour. I'm excited for, I mean, congrats on this album. I'm excited about it. I'm excited for the live shows. And I'm glad that we finally got to meet. It's been some time in the making. So thank you, Vincent, for hanging out with me. You guys be sure to check out the new album, Art of Change, is out now, and catch him on tour if he's around your area. And thanks for watching on Front Row Live.